Hi, and welcome to another episode of Hot Takes with me, the Silver Fox. And I do apologise for not getting any videos out in the last few days. As you can probably hear in my voice, I've got the back end of a cold. It was particularly heavy. I was laid up in bed for a couple of days, and I did get up yesterday, but I was in no fit state to be sitting here and creating videos. But I've pushed myself through today. I'm up, and we are tackling one. I felt obliged to do this. It's a follow-up to a video I did some time ago involving an SNP Councillor, Mark Kerr. He is one of the absolute worst people in the world. He's one of that sort of people who likes very young people, shall we say. The YouTube algorithm, you can't go too heavy, too hard, too early in a video, but you know exactly what I mean. So he's been convicted, and he's had he was given a total of 7 years, but it's 6 years for one crime and 1 year for another crime. But the 1 year crime, that conviction will be served concurrently rather than consecutively, which I think is a shame. Now, I will point out that I'm highlighting this because a couple of the good viewers, your good selves, have come forward and asked me to recover this and given me information. I protect the sources. I don't say who this is coming from, just that one is A and one is P. They know who they are. And gentlemen, I thank you very much. My apologies, as I say, for not getting onto this sooner. I should have been able to do this more or less live, as it were. But unfortunately, due to illness, that wasn't the case. But I have absolutely jumped on it now. We're going to go and look at this case and at the result, and to see what's going to happen to this man. And as I say, thankfully, he's now off the streets for at least 5 years. Let's look at the report. Right, here's the story. Before I get into it, I will say what I'll do is I will put a link to the original video at the back end of this one, just so you can see what I did originally, and then you can sort of see the denouement. If you're watching this, obviously you'll find out what happened before you hear the story. But, you know, there's a beginning, a middle and an end. It doesn't matter what order they're in. But I will put the link there. But anyway, here's the story. This is in the Scottish Daily Record. But it isn't just local to Scotland. I mean, this... what else? We've got the National, again, Scottish, but it is in the full... the full media across into England as well, because it's in the Mail. So this is completely everywhere. It's not just a local matter. But we'll do the one out of the Daily Record here. And of course, being national now, that will be very embarrassing to Nicola Sturgeon and her cohort of awful people in the SNP. They keep pushing for this men able to identify as women so they can get into vulnerable spaces, for where women are vulnerable, women are, and where there's children. So I think Mark Kerr's main problem here is that he didn't declare that he was a woman before doing what he did to these children. If he'd have done that, then in Nicola Sturgeon, Scotland, that would, I think, have been a lot less serious in terms of crime, because that's the direction of travel that the SNP are pushing. But that's for another video. Let's look at this one. So, Mark Kerr jailed for 6 years after grooming and abusing teenage boys. Mark Kerr preyed on victims, including attempting to R one of them at his home in Croy in Lanarkshire. Croy, that's the Electric Bray, as I seem to remember, which is a marvellous road if ever you get a chance to go up it. Anyway, a shamed former SNP councillor and complete P, who groomed and abused a string of teenage boys, has been jailed for 6 short years. Mark Kerr preyed on victims, including attempting R at one at his home in Croy, and the 40-year-old struck mostly before he was elected as a councillor in 2017 for the Kilsyth ward, but mostly, which means he was doing this as an SNP councillor. And we do know how much the SNP encourage people to get close to children. But as he went on to grope the final victim at a food bank in the village in May 2020, Kerr denied the accusations and insisted he'd been the target of a vendetta. Yeah, I don't believe that either. Which saw him forced out of his home of 32 years. Well, if you are doing this on your own doorstep, don't be surprised when the locals turn up with pitchforks and flames. But he was found guilty of a total of 9 charges, spanning between December 2010 and May 2020. So he's had 10 years. He's had a spree of 10 years. This reign of abuse of small boys. So, it's 10 years. Now, I know that the police were warned in the early days and the police did nothing. He should never have been allowed to get away with this for 10 years. His crimes were the attempted R as well as various other S offences against 5 other male victims. He was sentenced today at the High Court in Paisley, where Judge Douglas Brown was told pervert Kerr continues to protest his innocence. The judge said this was a systematic and deliberate course of conduct. You spent time with teenage boys, tried to engage them in S-charged conversations and took advantage of opportunities to assault them. You took advantage of one of the boys while he was asleep and you attempted to R him. Some of the victims and their relatives were at court for the hearing today and there were cries of justice and yes as Kerr was sentenced. I will say, it's my personal belief, you should never judge someone. You don't know what that person is, who that person is, what the person's been through. So try never to judge someone just because of how they look. You say you don't judge someone by the colour of their skin or you don't judge someone by their disability. And these are quite right. These are quite right that you shouldn't do that. However, human nature is what human nature is. And I'm telling you now, if you saw this man and you saw him hanging around where there were lots of children, you would certainly be judging him. Anyone would judge that for hanging around children. Anyway, jurors at the trial at the High Court in Glasgow heard how all the boys in the case were much younger than the former nationalist politician. Kerr, now of Wishaw in Lanarkshire, got to know the first when he was in his mid-teens. The then boy looked eagerly upon openly gay Kerr as a mentor, as he came out himself. And he said S activity with Kerr first took place at a disused quarry when he was 15. So he is guilty of P, because a 15 child, that's it. You are a P. But I tell you, I could look at that face and know it. The victim, now in his 20s, said that the older man then attacked him after there had earlier been a local SNP function. He was asleep at the time at Kerr's home. Must ask, what were the parents doing? Why would and I'm not blaming the parents, but weren't the parents aware that their 15-year-old son was spending the night with an older man? If they were aware of this, did that not ring bells, especially when that man looked like that? Or was the fact that he was an SNP councillor give him that sheen of authority, that sheen of, oh, he's fine, he's safe? Because the SNP wouldn't employ anyone like that, would they? Describing the 2015 attempted R, he recalled, I froze once I understood what was happening. I could not control my body. It did not allow me to do anything. He's a 15-year-old boy. He's frightened. There's an older, bigger man forcing himself on him. It's not surprised that he did not, respond. Rabbit in the headlights. Perfectly natural. He later confronted Kerr in the street. You can read the words, I can't say it, but with a sharp thing in his hand. The victim's mother had also turned up and she witnessed her son yelling, "Tell my mum what you've done." Kerr claimed he was innocent, but she said he was not able to meet the woman's eyes. Kerr tormented another boy from around 2012, referring to lurid accounts of gay S. He stated to the youngster, "Don't knock it until you've tried it." He went on to grab the worried teenagers behind. The court heard Kerr joined 2 boys on a camping trip, pitching a tent. Yeah, near the Boathouse restaurant in Croy. I bet he was pitching a tent. He was guilty of molesting one of them in the tent, but acquitted of R-ing another at that time. At that time. So he'd already been found, been to court over this and found innocent. However, he did S-assault the R accuser in 2014 in Croy while he was asleep. In 2014, Kerr targeted another of the teenagers by groping him and sending him S-graphic messages online. But even after he'd been elected to a position of power in the community, Kerr continued his offending, because it's not as though he's going to be, fading into the crowd. Look at him. He's a huge, oafish, horrible piece of human filth that cannot hide itself. It must be 25, 30 stone of pure pee, disgusting dross. His last young victim was abused at a food market or a food bank set up to help people during the 2020 lockdown. He told the trial, "I thought he was a nice guy. I do not see that now." Kerr gave evidence during the trial and claimed he had been targeted after he'd put a video of boys playing at a local disused quarry on his councillor Facebook page. He says this was done purely to warn parents of the dangers. Bullshit. What are you doing there? Filming boys. Kerr sobbed as he told how he'd been filmed being forced out of his home by locals and branded the local nonce, because he is. And often graphic detail, he insisted he was physically unable to do of what was alleged, claiming he was a 40-year-old V. But prosecutors said he was a predator, hiding in plain sight. In his closing speech, Advocate Deputy Michael McIntosh told jurors, "You might come to the conclusion that behind the public persona, that friend to all, he was a wolf in sheep's clothing. Well, that's one huge mother of a sheep." A lot of people thought he was a good guy, but he was a man who used his position, age and role as an activist and mentor to engage in sustained grooming of teenage boys for his personal gratification. The court heard today a pre-sentencing report that Kerr lacked remorse and empathy for the victims. David Taylor, defending, said, "He tells me he regards offending as abhorrent and in no way condones that behaviour. In his view, he was not guilty." Kerr was put on the offenders list indefinitely. Police Scotland welcoming the sentencing in a statement. Detective Inspector Colin Moffat of the NCAI, the man who failed to do his job the first time round, said Kerr was in a position of responsibility and trust as a local politician, but he preyed on teenagers, one of whom he met at an official function. He befriended them and he betrayed them. I welcome his conviction and placement on the SO's register. Our thoughts are very much with his victims, and their bravery in coming forward is commended. I hope they now get some closure with this sentencing. It would be nice that when someone goes to the police and reports this kind of thing, the police take it seriously and do a full investigation. Kerr was reported on several occasions, but because of his position as an SNP councillor, presumably, the police were loath to act. They don't want to upset the blessed Nicola. She might get angry with them and cut their funding or something. Tackling S-crime is a top priority for Police Scotland. Oh boy, your work cut out then. Once that gender identity comes through and every bloke who wants to get close to women gets his dress on, moves in, boy, you are going to be the most overworked office in Scotland. Anyway, he says, "I would urge anyone who is or has been the subject of any form of abuse to get in touch with us." Why would it do any good? Didn't last time. Anyway, he is now locked up. He's got 6 years. That I don't know how he hides. I don't know how do you look like that? Do the crimes you do and expect to get away with it? Anyway, as I say, it's there. The story's here. More or less the same details. Look at it. Lots sort of sharper and shorter there. And okay, the Mail gives a full thing over. Full history of what's gone on, shall we say. But this disgusting piece of human filth is now off the street, but only for 5 years. Now, he will be out. He's been given 6, of course. He'll get mandatory parole if he doesn't screw up. He'll get time off for time served. So he's likely to do 4 years. Now, in 4 years, he's going to come out and he's going back to his house in Wishaw, in Lanarkshire. And he's going to be in a local community and he isn't going to be able to hide. You don't look like that and hide. So I do consider that the people of Wishaw will give him a very warm welcome on his return in about 4 years' time. And let's hope the people in, I don't know what the prison would be, but whatever prison that he finds himself in, I hope that the inmates there give him a very, boisterous and happy welcoming party and, welcome him in, get him in a cell, have a few of the boys round, throw a bit of a party. Apparently 7 or 8 out of them, 7 out of 8 people in a cell will have a good time. Anyway, I shall round off there and come up. That these absolute pieces of human filth exist is bad enough. That they're only given 6 years and do 4 for crimes like this is appalling. It is not the justice system we need. It does not protect anyone, because in 4 years he's out and he won't have changed. His desires will still be the same. No child is safe. No boy child is safe. How on earth he thinks he can get away with it is beyond anybody's comprehension. Everyone who joins a political party should have their history completely looked into. And if there's any vague hint of a doubt, of a cloud, it should debar them. But some parties care and some parties don't. And we've seen it all through. I mean, it's not just the SNP. I will be fair. Every party has it. Because they don't apply the same rigorous back-checking to join a party as they do to, say, work in a school. Perhaps any politician needs to have a DBA check. I think that would be absolutely fine. Let's give them a full child safety check. Might throw a few surprises. Maybe that's why they won't vote for it. There's enough of them in there that are pretty noncy themselves. But at least he's off the road, off the streets for a little while, and I can end it here and go and recover. It's taken out quite a lot doing this. I haven't fully recovered, and I can see from making this video it has actually tired me out quite a bit. But I thank you very much for listening. As I say, I'll put the link to the other story at the back end. And we will hope that they keep catching these animals, and the more of them they get, the better. But until next time, stay safe, stay well, don't let your kids play with anyone who even remotely looks like that, and goodbye.